I play the LinkedIn game because I have to. Why? So why should we do this?
My entire inbound engine right now is LinkedIn. That has like compounded over the past 10 years that I've been posting on LinkedIn every day. So any individual that's trying to do this on their own, like there's a lot of value, inherent net positive value.
I am so excited for today's conversation. Melissa Rosenthal is an incredible human, an incredible kind of marketing executive, a seasoned kind of content leader, social leader, brand builder. She's worked at incredible companies like Cheddar, BuzzFeed, ClickUp, and now founding Outlever, which I'm excited to talk to her about today. And so this is a topic that feels very timely right now in terms of the overall uh, sentiment around how should executives kind of show up on platforms like LinkedIn and others. Why should we show up, and ultimately, how is this helping us kind of drive our business goals forward? And so I couldn't think of anyone better to talk to about this than Melissa. So let me go ahead and welcome Melissa on the stage. Hello, hello.
Hey, hey, how are you? Thank you for having me. Excited to
Oh,
be here and chat through all these great topics.
totally, yeah. And honestly, I've been such a huge fan of your career. We worked together a little bit at Audience Plus. I was lucky to have you kind of be an advisor to the business, and so learned so much from you over the years, and continue to, and hope to kind of get to the bottom of kind of what the heck is happening with LinkedIn and other
Yeah,
networks on this conversation today.
yeah, let's do it.
Well, one of the things that, as I think about your career from the outside here, it's you've really been focused on building brands and building it with authority, and building kind of a people first kind of approach to how we show up as brands online. Curious how what as you look at kind of LinkedIn, particularly as a network, or even I guess more broadly just social, how how are you seeing these platforms change and evolve, as we're all focused on trying to create content around them?
Yeah, I mean, obviously, LinkedIn in the capacity of like what works and what doesn't is kind of a black box. Like, you see things change every day. The algorithm changes. We all notice it. We all bitch about it. But the interesting thing is that, and I made a post on this the other day, that like there are so many sub communities out there of people
Mm,
talking about like hyper niche things like cybersecurity, healthcare, and AI facilities, and like all these like little pocket communities. And what I've been realizing over the past probably year is the fact that like we're all in our own lane, and what works for
mm,
us as like B2B like kind of doesn't work for other communities because they're maybe more tight knit or they're talking about very specific things. So my perspective is like two things. It's a like how do I show up, and like how do I
yeah.
like build growth and see what other people are doing. But then like, how do I pay attention to everything else around me? Because that impacts my own business. It makes my understanding of like what works, what doesn't work even stronger. So, it's been really interesting to just see like there are a lot of people that like want a thought lead, let's just say that, even more so than ever before across every single type of company, series, stage. Major corporations are now like allowing their own executives to speak
Yeah.
on LinkedIn freely without PR, without comms approval. And I think the interesting thing about that is like to me that's like a huge like moment in time where we've broken down a lot of barriers. Like if a public S&P listed company is able to speak freely without having
Yeah.
to run their post through approval or allowing themselves to speak to other people, like there's something happening there. So I think like it's only growing. I think there's not enough enablement, I'll say that. Like some people
Mm,
don't know how to do it. Everyone is like, I don't know, the LinkedIn expert, but like there's just a lot of people trying to find their way within kind of
yeah.
like what that executive thought leadership looks like.
It's so funny. I remember not too many jobs ago talking about like having a speaker bench, and these are people that were media trained, and they were on
Mhm.
message, and they were allowed to comment publicly. Marketing would invest in kind of building their profile publicly. So it's almost like the before picture looked a lot different than
Yeah.
today.
Yeah.
Um,
Yeah, no, I'll just add to that. I think like I think you believe this too, but like I think people understand that brand page, right? And like what that symbolized is like kind of just a relic and now like just
Yeah.
optics versus the actual people as the channels for the messages, and what an impact that can have on, overall business growth, overall brand recognition.
Yeah. Well, I'd love to get your take on like why. So why should we do this? Because I had a post this weekend that like there's some ugliness out there. I I play the LinkedIn game because I have to,
Hmm.
because I believe in the why that we'll talk about right now, probably. But it's like I'm not. I don't get a lot of joy out of fighting algorithms and trying to get reach and trying to become a creator and all that. And I tend to be fairly introverted when not on the live stream right now to however many people are watching. Um, but I know how important it is to be present, be public, be visible. I'm curious, like, what's your take on why people should be speaking up on behalf of the brand?
Yeah, I mean, I think it's like there's two things, right? There's like a lot of layers, I think, to this entire conversation. So cut me off if I go too long. But
Yeah,
one
no,
is like one is like you're an executive at a company. Everything is in flux, and the more you're out there, the more you're building your own personal brand. The more that you have a unique take and perspective in an age where like a lot of things are becoming kind of AI slop, right? So I think
yeah,
like take your unique perspective just obviously builds your own brand. It builds your credibility and within your industry. And I mean, I won't say every, but like a lot of great opportunities like in my entire career, I mean, this too, like
yeah, yeah,
my entire inbound engine right now is LinkedIn, right? So obviously like that has like compounded over the past 10 years that I've been posting on LinkedIn
yeah,
every day. So any individual that's trying to do this on their own, like there's a lot of value, inherent net positive
yeah,
value. As companies, when you think about like your message and being able to personify your message outside of just like your company brand page and your like owned and operated channels, like the broader thinking, and I think the more like forward thinking, is that every single one of your employees has their own network, their own reach, their own
hmm
ICP that is living within their own ecosystem. And being able to tap into that, you're tapping into millions and millions and millions of impressions of people that are perfectly within different ICP segments. So there's just like so much value in just like the network of being able to like really build this. Like I believed in it day one at ClickUp. We built an entire program, like an employee evangelism program,
right,
to train our employees on like how to even just be thought leaders and create content around like the specific things that are important to them. Like I don't want the technical folks to talk about brand. I want them to talk about MCP servers and what's happening within building and like and infrastructure, right? So I think it's just like you can tap into topics that may not, like if I talked about that, no one would care. But like but our CTO can certainly speak about that, and like that's really important to his own audience. So
yeah. No, I think that's great, and I think part of it too that I talk about is people want to buy from people too. Like
yeah.
people don't want to buy from a SVG file, logo, whatever. Like they want to buy from the humans that have a point of view, they stand for something, and they see a vision of the future and want to invite you as a customer to be a part of it. Sorry if that's a little too like romantic or whatever, but I do think that there is an emotional core to the buying process that I want to work with Outlever because I want to work with Melissa. I believe in her. I've been following her. I believe what she's saying, and I want to go on this journey with her. So I don't know. I think that there's something there too that
Oh, I
that
mean,
stands out.
yeah. I mean, like going into that, like, is that third, I think, like prong of
Mm,
like everything. But like that's our entire company's motion. It's the future is like people buy from people, and relationships are built on providing inherent value to people up front and building those relationships and building trust. Things are sold
yeah,
on
yeah,
trust. They're not sold
totally,
on messaging.
totally. There's a somebody posted something on my LinkedIn that on a comment
Mhm.
on promoting this post that got
I
me
love
thinking a
this.
little bit. Like that,
I love
yeah,
this. Yeah, this
exactly,
is amazing. Yeah.
totally. No, but somebody mentioned like the best way for an executive to show up online and not be a creator is to try not to be a creator, and or something to that end. Forgive me if you're
Mhm.
watching and you posted that. And this may sound like a nuance, but I'm just curious because you've studied this space a lot closer than I have. Um, is there a difference between a CMO, a founder, whoever, like posting online on LinkedIn intentionally for the reasons we just talked about, or and someone that is trying to be a creator or build an audience?
Is there like an inherent difference in like let's get deeper on that. What's the
Yeah, I'll tell you. I think the way that I'm interpreting it, because I'm kind of trying to figure out the question a little bit too here. It's like, as a founder of a business or as a CMO, I have a day job. I
Mhm.
accountable to a pipeline target or building a product. Like we have a team that we need to lead, whatever. But we're posting online typically to like share best practices, to be visible in the collective kind of community that is LinkedIn. Whereas my sense is the nuance with a creator is that that person's like building an audience with the intention to monetize
Besides that
said
audience?
audience. Yeah, I think that's something like that in my
Yeah,
opinion.
that's fair. I mean, I think like the difference. I mean, honestly, it should all like if you want to just take every pool of why someone posts, like it should just go back to this like inherent value. Like how do you
Mm,
provide inherent value and how do you build an audience of people that trust you? Like the worst thing I see is like in some of I guess like we do searches every day and I'm trying to like figure out like what people are talking about X, Y, and Z. If you search, there was a recent like a Bumble campaign that I wanted to cover for our company. And I searched Bumble and all I see are like people just reposting the same stories about like Whitney Wolf Herd and like the hacks that she took to like build Bumble. And I'm like, oh, this is just like regurgitated slop. Like I think it's,
mm,
I think it's like unique perspective. It's like how do you find your own voice? How do you create learnings that are inherent to like your experience? Like your lived experience is the most valuable thing that you could have and offer to your
yeah.
community. And how do you like tap into that? I don't know if you need to like do ayahuasca to figure it out, but like but it's like, how do you like that is the most like that is when people are going to trust you. It's like when you're like you're
Yeah.
open and you're honest and you're vulnerable and like some of it is like again it's like yes, you're trying to play a game and game an algorithm, but like you're also like the stuff that does the best for me is like when I show up and I say like hey, this happened to me or
Yeah. Yeah.
this is an actual experience and this is what I learned from it. Those always do the best. And I think it's like the more that people can try to like look within their own souls and be like, hey, this is what I'm experiencing or I've dealt with, like the more people will be like, oh, you're a person. It's the same thing. Like
Yeah.
they want to see like a person on the other side of that.
That's so good. Yeah, because I think that might be the heart of the disconnect is the marketer in me wants to look at how many impressions I got on the post. And so then I get really like
Mhm.
mad or sad when I write something and I don't know, I feel like I included a link or I mentioned someone and like I didn't get the reach I thought I would. And then I want to delete it and then go cry somewhere. I don't know. And then, or at least second guess everything I thought I knew about online marketing. And then to your point, like sometimes you'll write something that is truly human. It might take like, 30 seconds or less. You publish it and it goes. So I think that might be the heart of the
Yeah.
tension
Yeah.
too. It's like,
Yeah, yeah, definitely. Also, the other thing is like the future of like I believe brand creating content is dialogue and two-way conversation. Like the days of like companies and just like the projection of like this is what I want to say and I'm saying it and like that's it. But like if you
yeah,
spark debate, if you spark conversation, if you open up that dialogue, if you respond to those people, if you have active conversations, like if you're publishing something that isn't merit like warranting a conversation around it either, like why
why
publish it?
post it? Yeah, totally. I do want to make our way to Outlever. When I see um, the your website and some of your messaging around owning your audience, it reminds me a little bit of Audience Plus. I wanted to talk about that first, and then get into the Outlever story. Um, I feel like this is something we both believe in, right? This idea of um, using these algorithms in order to distribute our story, but
Yeah.
potentially also like attempting to convert that audience into a space where you can have that direct relationship with them. And honestly, we're probably overdue for a postmortem on Audience Plus, not on a live call with a bunch of people. But I think what I found with it was that the practice of actually converting your audience from the rented channel is really difficult. And for a lot of companies, that's been part of the challenge. It's okay, well, we have to create content that's good enough to get the reach on things like LinkedIn and other places, but then find a way to get them into this other space. So I'm just wondering if your thoughts on owned media kind of more broadly are evolving over the years, or how are you thinking about kind of just the relationship between rented channels and owned?
Yeah. Great conversation. I could probably talk about this for an hour or 2 hours. We could definitely do that too. And yeah, we definitely inherently see the world the same way. The one thing I think we might differ on, and I don't know how your thoughts or perspectives have evolved, but
Yeah.
the first one is like we build the owned for them too. So a part of our product and a part of our motion is like building their owned and operated channel, which like sounds nuts, but it actually works if you do it well. And then
Yeah.
part of it is playing with the rented and playing really nicely with the rented and not trying to fight it. I think
Mm,
like my view is like I've spent my entire career like trying to fight the rented land problem, and you can't win. You won't
I
win.
know.
So how do you optimize for being their best friend, right? Like
Yeah.
I think that is like the sort of like two-pronged approach that we take. It's like let's build something really powerful that they own and operate and is theirs and it's an asset, and then everything else plays to the nature of the channels that support it and the rails that it runs on.
Yeah. No, I agree, and I'd say that's in line with my understanding. I mean, I think that trying to fight the algorithm is we're just never going to win. I think there's
Everything is
something to that.
the other thing is like everything is too distributed at this point, right? Like
Yeah.
it's like the world has evolved in the place where like people want the information where they are. Like
Yeah.
if you try to redirect them off of that in any way, like it just doesn't work. And then if you're trying to fight the algorithm, like I think people are just too ingrained in like sort of the way that information comes to them, and like
Yeah.
that you're fighting against that as well, you know.
Yeah. Yeah. No, I mean, the challenge that I think we ran into was where we send that traffic. And so I'm experimenting a lot with like Substack today. And
Hmm.
what's interesting is like that's an owned ish channel, but
Ish.
they have their own network effects and virality
Yeah.
kind of built with that platform that I benefited from already. Whereas with Audience Plus, the idea was to send traffic to a website, and that's where, or like that you own and operate. And I think I ran into some challenges there in the sense of like, all right, so what's on the other side of that click? And how does that evolve? What's the future of the website look like, even in an AI world where we're prompting, conversational kind of interfaces and whatnot. So it's definitely evolving, I would say, but I think that the core principle is still true, right? In the sense of I want to build for lack of a better term, community around the
Yeah.
people who care deeply about this topic that I too care about.
Totally. And I think the one thing on the like trying to send traffic to like an owned site, right? So the domain itself, like I don't believe in domains. Like I believe that like no one is going to go to a thing. But
Mm,
if there's a piece of the thing that lands in front of them, they will go to the thing and live in the thing for longer. So it's like
interesting.
getting the pieces of that larger domain out the door so that people land on it through, so let's just say thousands of tentacles into the wild, right? Like
Yeah,
but trying to send traffic to a holistic place will never work again. Like I like that's
I
why
think you're right.
like I don't want to say this too loudly, but like that's why digital media broke, right? Like they tried and they tried
Mm,
and they tried it and they fought and they said, okay, like we can't play this game anymore. So let's just send 1,000 tentacles into the wild and try to get people to land on individual articles and individual pieces of
yeah,
content. That's the future, I think.
interesting. Yeah, it's funny. Like I'm studying what TBPN's doing. I don't know if you're following kind of
Hmm.
their
Yeah,
work.
yeah.
And what I noticed is that they're just like a clip factory. Like they
Hmm.
create so many clips off each live show, and then when you go and you kind of look at the actual posts of the clip, there's no link. There's no
Hmm.
call to action. In fact, it's
Hmm.
just there's a clip that is following. Like there's 5 clips a day or whatever, And so their tentacles, to use that language, are everywhere. And they're not even trying to take you to anywhere else. They're just going to show up everywhere. And that
Yep.
seems to be kind of an approach that's
Yeah.
working for
The
them.
totally the next level of like that conversation is like beyond the like, okay, thousands of tentacles, it's then thousands of hyper personalized, hyper targeted tentacles. Because
Oh, wow.
I think it's less about quantity and it's all about quality and it's all about direct traffic. It's all about who exactly you are getting to land on that thing. And that is going to be like what
Mm.
determines like whether obviously like who cares? Like thousands of views don't matter anymore. I think it's like if you had 200 views and that's your exact target audience, that's way more valuable.
So much more valuable. That's great. Well, let's talk about Outlever. You made the jump to founder. Congratulations on our CEO and looking at the
Thanks.
mission, turning brands into the number one news source in their industry by helping them own the narratives that matter. Um, Talk to me about that, like this idea of owning or
Yeah.
controlling the brand story. Like, what's the context kind of behind
Yeah.
the
Yeah.
mission?
Yeah, sure. So, you mentioned like I was early BuzzFeed. I was one of the first 10 employees. I went to go start Cheddar, and during that time, we were building media companies to build credibility, to build domain authority, to build trust, right? But really, what we were doing is we were building those media companies to sell advertising, and we would sell that to the
Mm,
tune of hundreds of thousands of dollars a month to B2B companies, so that they could come in and run sponsored shows or sponsored placements or advertise to a lot like to juxtapose their company with our voice. And I always wondered back then, I was like, this is a little like, I'm like, okay, you don't question the model that feeds you too much. But I was always like, why aren't companies like actually doing this themselves? Like this doesn't like feel like a long play. It's a one and done. And fast forward to where we are now, like all of a sudden, like I was and kind of then having my B2B experience, I was like, all right, this is the time. Like all these companies, like, TechCrunch was sold in a fire sale to PE. Everything
yeah.
is shutting down. Those companies don't understand modern day distribution. They don't understand what the actual buying cycle is. They're not thinking like B2B
Mm,
marketers. How do we flip the entire thing on its head and allow the companies to actually own the media? So that's what we do effectively.
super interesting. That's awesome. And what just remind me of the types of companies you got or types of customers you guys sell to?
Yeah, it's all industry agnostic. A lot of like very industries you would never think of, like deep supply chain, facilities management. Do have a couple B2B companies, large cybersecurity firms, data storage. A lot of these industries that are like on the verge of pivoting and really thinking about like what the next wave of their own growth is. We do have a couple of like B2B SaaS companies, but that's actually much less of our customer than like more of deep
Interesting.
industry. But yeah, all industry agnostic and just kind of like a lot of companies that I'm like, wow, they like what they're doing is really interesting. And they're huge companies and like there's a lot of ability for them to own lots of different cool conversations out there and really have
Yeah.
open those conversations at scale.
That's always been I feel like a great or a question that I would often get is like, what if your audience isn't on LinkedIn? What if it is a facilities business and they're
Yeah.
in other
Yeah.
spaces, becoming the source of news, becoming kind of the lightning rod, or whatever the right metaphor is for the people in that job, in that profession, feels like just a massive opportunity.
Yeah, yeah. I mean, people like would say to us, "Oh, that'll never happen. Like, you'll never be able to do that. You'll never be able to break." And I'm like, "Dude, I've done this for 15 years. Like, I know when you say that, that actually means it will happen. Like, I'll be
Yeah,
able to do
yeah.
that." Because everything is made to be disrupted and broken, and it only takes a couple of wins. Like at Cheddar, like we had to build a complete network to compete with CNBC from nothing, and like think about that. And it was like, how do we get our first great guest, and then how do we get our
Mm.
second great guest, and then how do we elephant bump, which is what we called it, that guest against the other guest. And then like all of a sudden we started getting Spencer Raskoff, who was the CEO of Zillow, and we started getting like major companies to come on, and they would come on Cheddar before they would go on CNBC, and we started getting threatening letters from CNBC, which was awesome. And
A good
literally
sign
like all
it's working.
a good sign. But every single principle I learned from like my days in media and a lot from SaaS, but like are all applied here. They all still work. It's just like you just got to break through a couple of barriers to start, and then everything starts moving.
Awesome. Um, well, I want to ask about AI.
Yeah.
in context about Lever and just kind of more broadly. But let's start with the business, 'cause I think you guys, just looking at the website, use AI to from like a media listening perspective, kind of listening for signals in different places. How what's your take, I guess, on like, is AI ruining content creation on the internet? Or how do you kind of
Yeah.
see it more of a as a creative partner? Like, what's your take kind of in general?
The answer is like, if done incorrectly, like, yeah, it is. It's turning every opinion into the same opinion. And I'm sure you've heard of like dead internet theory, but like that's gonna happen. Like 100% that's gonna happen. So yeah, there's a real threat out there that like the information is just regurgitated information that started, 10 eons ago, and now you're getting
Yeah.
the 10x version of what that is. What we do is we take kind of this like sparring partner, collaborator approach. We've rebuilt what we've had to rebuild is like really immense, but we've rebuilt like everything. We've rebuilt reimagined what a CMS looks like. We've
Wow.
reimagined what Fireflies looked like. We've rebuilt Fireflies to train it on hundreds of thousands of interviews that we've conducted so that it thinks like a journalist. So when our journalists are working within our own tools, they're able to like, it understands how they are going to think on interviews, how they are going to want to write pieces, how that piece
Wow.
should come out and the questions they should ask. So we're letting them do their thing because they're the best ones to get the most out of like people's perspectives and like those voices that we're speaking with. But at the same time, like we need to make them faster. Like we can't, there's no world in which like a piece can take 3 to 4 hours to publish. So we treat AI as a collaborator and in every sense of the word. And we enable it to allow our customers to be able to take action on the things that we're doing. And really just like, I mean, the future of our company is like we're a content OS, we're a content ecosystem where everything is connected, and everything kind of lives within its own world that empowers everyone to take action.
That's great. Just a quick question from the audience is, how do we take audience questions? Just go ahead and write them in the chat. So we'll make sure to ask them. So I saw, however you wrote that, David, write it again, and we'll make sure to ask your question. And yeah, everything will be summarized on the weekend email on Sunday. So I've had a similar kind of experience, like writing with thinking about ChatGPT or whatever as like a creative writing partner. Whereas where it feels like any idea that I give ChatGPT, like it thinks I'm a genius, like responding to me. They're like, yeah, great point, like awesome,
Mm-hmm,
like let
mm-hmm.
me build on that. Versus, what maybe a real human would say, which actually that's a terrible idea, Anthony. Like, have you considered this? And so I think that there's this danger that it would make, to your point, like any opinion that is that is then prompted with a generative model, can just sound like bland, vanilla, bad opinion at the end of the day, and maybe formatted the same with like the same kind
Oh
of
yeah,
four
yeah, yeah.
emojis that go into every post and M dashes and all that fun stuff. Um, what I found's been good is um, treating it as more of a creative partner, and so
Mm-hmm.
like not treating it as like its output as publish ready content,
Yeah.
but thinking through, okay, so imagine you're a brand strategist from Airbnb and you were working on this kind of slogan. Like, how would you take a couple passes at what that slogan could be, and what would be a higher order benefit than even the one that we're currently kind of positioning in our why statement. So I mean, I feel like that's been more of and in that case, it's actually been quite awesome, quite amazing.
Yeah.
Like I can't imagine working without it now. But I feel like that you can scroll any feed, and see kind of a very familiar set of formatting for folks who just copy and sort of paste whatever's coming out of the generative tools.
Yeah, I mean, I think like the way that I look at it, and I think the way that most people look at it, and you probably do too, but it's good data in, good data out, and it's not a brain, it's a database. And I think like when people start like operating and using it as like a person that they're speaking with, like it gets really messy. Like,
Yeah,
I had like someone reference like what we do, and they kind of like put it in ChatGPT and then spit out the answers back to me, and I'm like, well, it's just referencing everything that it has access to. Like that's it,
yeah,
right? So like the more like that's why we created our own model off of like because it had to be trained off of something that new for us to make it valuable. Like we couldn't just use the regular models out there. We use Gemini, but it's Gemini plus everything that it's been trained off of thousands of interviews of human perspectives. So I think it's
Yeah.
like you have to really like understand like what you're expecting out of it and how to prompt it. Like you might realize that like to get the right output, it's actually like a 50-step prompt. But once you've put
Mm.
those 50 steps in and you've evolved them, like all of a sudden you are getting magic out of the model. But it's just like, just, you got to think about it as a database that's been trained off of like the data. And now the data that's
Yeah.
going in might may not be great data. Right. So all of those
Yeah.
posts that are going in that are like with the emojis are now being fed back into GPT, and now you're getting the regurgitation of that.
Yeah.
Like it's like you put it like, yeah, I mean, it's just that's what you're getting. You're getting regurgitated content at this point.
Yeah. We're back to dead internet theory,
Yeah,
even more accelerated now.
yeah, yeah.
Um, Vishal had a good question. He was asking if AI can mimic tone and style flawlessly, what becomes the irreplaceable fingerprint of a leader's true voice?
It
So I'm
cannot right now. It cannot.
Yeah,
Yeah. It definitely cannot. It like that's actually been the biggest struggle for us. Like figuring out like that is where our journalists like they are really putting their perspective in. It's their tone. It's the shaping of the perspective. It's like taking that person's perspective and like making sure that it is articulated perfectly to really showcase their views. Like it doesn't do that well at all. So that for right now, I think that like also like the things that they're saying are inherently their thoughts and perspectives, and to actually have that output, like that's very human right now. Like
yeah,
it's not doing it well.
yeah. No, I don't think it does at all. Yeah, I think I tend to write a little bit more academic than I talk. I don't know
Hmm.
why. That's just kind of a flawed thing, but it certainly doesn't show up that way right on the output. One more question from the
Yeah.
audience, or two more. Abdul's asking, which aspect of authenticity do you think executives struggle with the most today?
Aspect of authenticity. I think it's probably like getting like okay. All right. I'll answer this like delicately. Um,
It's
because we
live TV. We
I know,
can,
I know, I know, I know. I know. Okay, so I think there's like definitely a balance between being vulnerable and being out there and being authentic and being like really cringy, right?
ooh, okay.
And like sharing like oversharing and sharing things that are like so deeply personal, like every
Yeah,
day, and it's like this is still like a I'm sure there are friends on here. People have made great connections, but think about your audience, right? Like
yeah,
this isn't your personal Instagram where your star is on and you're sending this to close friends. This is being
yeah,
broadcast to a much wider audience. And I think like you got to find this business medium that is like, how do you be vulnerable and really be authentic and true to yourself, but not like over the top where it's like, oh my God, like
yeah,
maybe not on this platform, maybe like save that for
yeah,
something else. Like I think it's just understanding audiences, it's understanding platforms, where you're speaking, what message, right? What message, what platform, what audience. I think is like a good principle of thinking of like how
yeah,
you convey that. Yeah, like I think that's what a lot struggle with. I see.
yeah. Yeah, toxic vulnerability is a real thing. And even if like you want to kind of showcase your humanity and whatnot, but at 8 a.m. on a Monday when we're drinking our coffee, getting ready for our work day, that may or may not
Yeah.
be the
I
space
mean, I
for
mean, yeah, and like
oversharing.
I right, I guess it's a weird thing because people do this and some of those posts do really well, right? It's like
Yeah,
I was depressed and I was drinking myself into a hole and then I came out of it and I'm like, I don't know. Like, I guess there's not a
yeah,
perfect answer of like what is appropriate to share. I think it's just more like understanding like where you sit and what you want to stand for and how you want to come off. And, I don't see people on CNBC like sharing that type of information. And I treat LinkedIn a little bit like a CNBC plus. Like it's my
that's
platform,
cool.
my
Yeah,
personal broadcasting platform, and there are things like what would I not get on television, or what would I not get on this podcast and talk about with you? I probably
yeah,
wouldn't share on LinkedIn.
yeah. No, that's right. All right, we got as of now one more from the audience, but folks, feel free to keep asking your questions. David's having us review here a pattern that he's seeing. Number one, understand the market need from interviews, which sounds like it's a big part of your playbook as well. Find evangelists that want to talk about how they solve that need. create events, perhaps like this one, where like-minded folks can get together, capture the takeaways and best practices shared across forum. Dave, this is my playbook you're in here. This is exactly what I do. And 5, create the Slack. I didn't do a Slack group yet, to be fair, for attendees to iterate on a daily basis. What would you add or edit to David's playbook here?
Yeah, let me just read through it. It's evangelists who want to solve, create events like minded folks. Yeah, and empower them to be able to speak on that stuff, right? Like if you're getting amazing things. Let's just say you're doing interviews with people that are subject matter experts across different industries, and you're getting a lot of stuff out of them. When people get on the phone with you, when people get on a podcast, this is why I love live, and this is why I believe in the future of this. Is like you get them to say all kinds of wonderful things, like you just do. The conversation really like usually goes really well, but then how do you take it back and empower them to be able to speak that to the rest of their audience? And I think the future of, and to add to this playbook, is how do you empower others to be able to speak their truth and their message and their point of view. I think the empowerment of people is certainly like I think the empowerment of people is a good one to add to that. How do you empower others?
Yeah, I think that's really good. And also, how, what are like, is this playbook in service of a product company and you're trying to sell a product? Is it evangelizing kind of an idea? Because I wonder if there's almost like a flywheel here as well, where you're empowering the people and then they're feeding context back
They
into your
are.
messaging and
Yeah, like they
yeah,
are, but it's based on value, and it's based on value extraction, and like the underlying brand or company that is supporting that is served by doing good. That's it.
yeah,
By providing value and building the relationship inherent based on trust and transparency, and allowing them to get their perspectives out there, and being a megaphone for that, is just like that. That's what I believe the future is lead with all of that, and then all the rest kind of comes from that.
yeah. In a way, that was sort of one of the things I think we did decently well with Audience Plus. Candidly, I'm doing it again with Golden Hour in the sense of before we even introduce the product, we're having conversations. We're trying to, build in public, might be like the
Hmm.
cheesy way of saying it. But in a way, we're running David's playbook to evangelize an idea, to get feedback and sharpen the content or sharpen the positioning of that idea, find people who are excited and believe in that idea to kind of follow us. And then I think it was step 5, like create events or communities to kind of
Yeah.
bring them together. Even before we ever announced what the heck we're doing. And I think that brands that can own the idea can win at the end of the day. And you see that so much with thought leadership, even at scale, where, and I'd argue even in the AI kind of frenzy that we're in today, all companies are on this path to commoditization. And so ownership of an idea or thought leadership, I think, could be a probably one of our last moats that we might have
Yeah,
in the
yeah,
marketing stack.
100%. I'm like completely aligned with that, and I also like I will like really bet. I mean, obviously we are really betting, but like on community, on community, on events, on human connection, and all of that is
Yeah,
exactly what this is.
totally. All right, we got another one from Carrie here. Um, she's asking, how can we prep execs for more success as spokespeople on social? That's a
Ooh,
good question.
like the negative stuff too, it's tough. Like I think you just have to build a thick skin, right? Like if you do something over and over and over and over, you start to understand and have pattern recognition, right? And you can understand like what you are going to receive out of what you post, and certain aspects of that. And I think like it's yeah, I don't know. If you have a really delicate ego, like that's a tough thing, because this stuff definitely is like something where like you have to be able to be okay. I think the best people that are like on this are like okay kind of being beat up in public a little bit. Like some of the things I'll post, like I mean, not that I like, I don't know, I posted something on my hiring practices, and I thought it was actually very PG, and it like I included one thing that like hit a community the wrong way, and I ended up on LinkedIn lunatics, and I got like
Oh
death threats.
no.
I
Oh my
literally got,
gosh, really?
yeah, like people followed, like tracked me down on Instagram and started like sending me like very threatening messages. And I was like,
Oh my
well, this is
gosh.
like a little scary, like for sure.
Yeah.
And then then a week later it all goes away. I'm like, obviously this isn't
Yeah.
like, but you have to like, there's certain things where you got to be okay with a little bit of like discourse that you might be uncomfortable with. I'd say, like, if you're being vulnerable and putting yourself out there, that's going to happen at some point. But it gets less hard the next time it happens if you kind of are braced for it or prepared for it.
Yeah. Yeah, no, that's really good. The only other thing that's coming to mind is like what not to do. I definitely, we've talked about like automating content
Hmm.
posting with generative kind of tools. Um, I think, oh man, I think I don't want to wade myself into some controversy here, but I don't think, I don't know about the ghostwriting thing. Uh, I don't know. I mean, I guess I've seen both sides of it, but ensuring that you can find ways to hack your time to actually
Hmm.
show up and be present, I
Hmm.
think that's really
Yeah.
important. But don't lose sort of the heart of your own story and your own, I'm killing the buzzword here,
No.
humanity, like in how you're creating those stories in favor of scale, I guess.
Yeah,
Um,
yeah, I love that point. I think there probably are like a couple ghostwriters that do it well. I mean, I know there are definitely.
yeah.
The one thing I'll say, other times it's like you are going to lose a little bit of like your writing, your style. And I don't know how what
Yeah.
your process is for your LinkedIn posts, but my process is like quite simple. I like will be in the shower or I'll be writing or doing something or coming off of a conversation with someone. I'll write a headline and I'll put that
Oh,
headline
cool.
in. I'll put that in Evernote, and then I'll come back to it. And then like as like things the puzzle kind of fills in, I'll start writing little different pieces in there. And then when I have a first draft, I'll like work with ChatGPT on like what that could be, and then I'll
Mm,
workshop that for a
refining it.
little bit. But it's not like the pressure of sitting down and being like, what am I going to write? And then like how do I fill up my posting schedule? Like that's a lot of pressure that you put on yourself. But if you do it in the
Yeah.
natural way of your own thinking, it becomes like muscle memory, and like all of a sudden that process becomes rooted into your head in a way that you didn't know possible. It's like the
Yeah.
best thing that ever happened when I started like utilizing this process for posting and coming up with ideas.
Do you try to like put, like have a week in the bank at a time, or how do you think about just the
Yeah, I
sort
try to
of
have
like,
like 2 to 3 weeks in the bank. But if new
okay,
things come, things, because the pressure of doing that plus running the company is just like it's really
that's what I was
tough.
going to ask. Yeah.
Yeah, but if something comes up that I'm like, oh, this is timely and really great, I'll slot that in. But yeah, having 3 weeks planned out is just like mental rest. And then like when I have that, then there's no pressure, and then the ideas actually come like much easier, honestly, when I know I
Yeah.
have that bank.
We're getting some great questions in here. So I'm going to add a couple.
Oh,
Um,
Mariah's our newest hire at Outlever.
what's going on, Mariah? Thanks for joining. Um, she's asking, how do you incentivize participation when it often feels like leaders prefer it? So this is my like thing, right? Like this past week, we've seen some like, I don't know if slop was the word, but we've seen some like shots being fired on LinkedIn that may or may not have, well, actually for sure in this case was not warranted. But the algorithm tends to favor sometimes controversy or favor like, divisive comments. And sometimes we're like, again, slipping into creator mode instead of executive, like
Yeah.
transparent mode. And we're tempted to like play that game perhaps a little bit. How do we, so Mariah's asking, how do we incentivize participation um, online publishing? Maybe I'll take a stab at it, and then most of you, if you want to add thoughts, but like, I would say like, it goes back to like, why are you doing this? Like, why are you creating content? And it's to be present. I think of LinkedIn oftentimes now as like the trade show floor. Like if you're not
Yeah.
there, like no one knows you exist. And to add value to the community based on your, I forget how you worded it, was your lived experience and kind
Hmm.
of what you're able to kind of put forward to the community and communicate what you stand for ultimately through that as a means of, I don't know, maybe one part self-expression, maybe not, but like the bigger thing is ultimately to build trust with your audience and
Yeah.
ideally the people at scale. So if you're a person at a business that wants to build trust and build relationships at scale and turn that hopefully into a business conversation or a commercial conversation, then I think that should be the incentive ultimately.
Yeah, yeah, and there's a playbook to teach people that, and I think part of our motion is definitely to help people, like teach people, like, hey, this is
Oh,
how you
cool.
can communicate yourself into the world, especially based on like, hey, we've already extracted all of your best, deepest perspectives on where this is. Let us help you get those out, right? I don't
Yeah.
know if leaders prefer AI stop. I just don't know if they know any better. Like, I think like that's just
Mm.
like now they're being like, they're like, oh, this tool. So like everyone just goes to the tool and expects like the tool to come out with something perfect. And again, like it's a database and it's not doing that. And that's like how you get into kind of the recycling of like the garbage. To the other
Yeah.
point, like I like don't believe LinkedIn is a place where you should attack other people. That's like,
Yeah.
oh, it's just, I mean, I don't
We shouldn't
know.
even
I
have to
don't
say
know.
that. You'd think we wouldn't even have to bring that up, but
It's a
that's
very, that is a
that's
very
true.
like bizarre thing. And like, yeah, I hopefully that becomes an outlier and more people are like, what is this? This is just like
Yeah.
bad taste, in bad taste. Let's just even talk about like
Yeah.
taste, like in bad taste. But I do think like the more that we can empower people to have that like trifecta of like, what's your larger goal, who are you trying to build trust with, what's your lived experience, and like can we insert some level of vulnerability and open up a dialogue, like let's say those five
That's
things,
great.
and like hopefully that becomes like the playbook of how people think about how they can communicate on LinkedIn and else and
Yeah,
elsewhere.
that's great. Um, all right, I have one last question. Then, if folks from the audience have anything else they wanted to bring up, and shifting gears a little bit to your own humanity now as a founder, executive turned founder, everything's changing so fast, and obviously having the weight of the business kind of on your shoulders. How do you, what practices do you kind of take on to invest in your own kind of well being, kind of as you're,
Yeah.
in founder mode, kind of building Outlever?
Yeah, well, the first thing, this is like more of like a business thing, but we didn't take VC money. And I
Mm,
did that so that I know my own anxiety, and I've been like a founding executive at companies that have, and I know what that pressure is like, not being the sole founder of that company. And to me, that like that pressure, and that while building something that like we're trying to prove a hypothesis around, and we're trying to prove that this will work, like is incongruent with like my
mm,
mental health. And I was like, let's just self fund this to the point where we know it's real, and then we can figure out what we want to do after. So that was number one, because I knew that like my mental state wouldn't survive like having a board talking to me about things that like we know the path, it just needs to be our own path. Second thing is, yeah, it's a lot. It's like a lot of not sleeping. It's a lot of like really like brutal stuff. I think it's just like I do yoga. I try to like create routines for myself that are healthy. Like even in like I do this at this time and this is this time, and I block off things that are
mm.
for me. I live in San Diego, so I'm like lucky enough to have really nice weather, and I do try to take walks and like just like be outside. Meetings where like there needs to be deep discussion can only be taken like outside. That's like actually one of
Oh,
my
good.
rules, so that I'm not trapped, because there will be days where I won't leave this apartment, and like
Mm,
that's not healthy. But yeah, it's rough. I mean, like, there's no sugarcoating like what it is to build something, but it's mostly managing anxiety, and I think like there's ways to do that and do it in a healthy way, and try to realize that my old founder at Cheddar, John, he used to say this, and it was a book that he read. I forget what, I think it actually is the book that it's called this. But the book is called The Score Takes Care of Itself. And it's about
oh,
sports.
interesting.
And I love that. Like I will like I reiterate that to my co-founder all the time, and I'm like, if we do the right things, if we take the right approaches, if we are consistent, if we show up every day, if we build for our customers, and we do all of this, the score takes care of itself. And that like framework like really actually helps me like lower all of my anxiety, because I just know we're
Yeah.
headed towards the right thing. So it's a mix of like trying to create good routines and thinking about these broader principles and broader ways of thinking about like success and what we want to achieve, and knowing like the things we do on a daily basis will amount to that. Yeah, the score takes care of itself, kind of a thing.
That's awesome. I wrote it down. I'm gonna Amazon it,
Yeah,
and check it out. Yeah, that's awesome. I've always apprecited, Melissa, how much as you've shared with the community and all of us, and I think you're like a bright example of someone who gives back so much. And even though we don't haven't talked, in a little bit, I feel like I've learned so much from you, kind of through the work that you do with on LinkedIn and other networks. So thank you so much for all you do. How can folks find out about Outlever, or kind of get stay kind of plugged in with the latest? Like, what's the best way
yeah.
to do
I
that?
mean, would it be weird to say LinkedIn? I mean, like
Not
that's
weird at all.
that's I share it all. I know you're a big fan of like the whole like building in public. I am too. I think I've the past year I've like done it less. I've spoken a lot in public, but I haven't built in public. And I think
Mm,
like fully, and I'm debating like what that level of building in public is for the next year. You can certainly find me on LinkedIn, but I think like, it's like, how much of this of this journey do you want to share? Right. Like you have
yeah,
to save a little bit for yourself. And I don't know, I'm still I still like debate that all the time and everything, but I am on LinkedIn all the time. I'm sharing personal
yeah.
anecdotes from like my past, things I'm learning every day. But yeah, that's the best place to find me. And DM me if you want to know more about what we're building and what we're doing at Outlever.
That's actually, we should make that the follow-up episode in a few months or something. It's like, should
Build,
you build in
build,
public?
build a public.
Yeah,
Exactly.
yeah.
Yeah.
I've got that brought up a lot of questions in my mind that, and anecdotes that I don't have time, we don't have time for, unfortunately. But
Well, part two
um,
for sure.
exactly. Perfect. Melissa, thank you so much for being on the
Yeah. Thank you for
show.
having
And
me. Great conversation.
of course, yeah. And thank you everyone for being a part of it. And we'll look forward to seeing you all next week.